Hi, you just saw her chair our low and middle income country session, but right now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Federica Di Palma. She's the current Director of Science at Earlham Institute, formerly the Genome Analysis Center in Norwich, UK. She's also an honorary professor of comparative genomics at the University of East Anglia. Professor Di Palma received her PhD in immunogenetics from the Institute for Animal Health and University of Reading, and she was also awarded a Fogarty Fellowship from the NIH Deafness and Communication Disorders Institute. She was at the Hubbard Center for Genome Studies at the University of New Hampshire, where she was a research scientist and manager of the Genome Center with a focus on environmentally important species. Before moving to Norwich, she was at the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard, where she served as assistant director of vertebrate genome biology and remains a visiting scientist. Dr. Di Palma's interests have spanned various topics. She writes on vertebrate genome diversity and evolution, biomedicine, and genetics. Professor Di Palma leads a number of research programs towards understanding the evolution of complex traits and regulatory processes underlying evolutionary change. Her research spans a wide variety of vertebrate species, including mammals and cichlids. She is also interested in using genomic information for understanding key organisms related to food security, as well as the conservation of threatened and endangered species. She now champions Colombian biodiversity protection through the Bridge Columbia network of researchers across the UK and Colombia, which you'll soon hear about. She has also implemented several research programs from countries on the DAC list aimed at building partnerships, generating genome resources, and delivering technical training events in genomics and informatics. I forgot to introduce myself, and I'm Joe Lopez, and I'll be chairing this committee, this session. But I first met Dr. Di Palma after being asked to serve on the Earth Biogenome Project's working group, and it's been a great pleasure to meet her and a wide array of talented, passionate scientists. Dr. Di Palma easily fits these categories and thus is the perfect speaker for this plenary on bioeconomies. Dr. Di Palma.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It is an absolute pleasure to be here to give this lecture. Thank you to the organizers and to the chair of this session for inviting me. First, a little bit about myself, given that in this virtual conference environment, we don't have much opportunity to exchange information. I am a professorial fellow of biodiversity at the University of East Anglia in Norwich, and I was previously director of science of the Earlham Institute on the same research campus. And I am hugely grateful to the Earlham Institute for helping me set up a lot of the initiatives that I will describe to you today. I'm equally grateful to the University of East Anglia for continuing to support this research. I have also taken up recently a new position as Chief Scientific Officer and Vice President Sectors at the Genome British Columbia in Canada. And I hope that by the end of this talk, I can demonstrate to you how important it is to set up collaborations that are equitable and multidisciplinary in nature, to really provide a solution to today's global challenges, and also to train a whole new generations of scientists who are capable of crossing discipline much more easily than we are able to, and that will pull actionable programs for the translation of these sustainable development goals. So biodiversity laws and it's extremely important, and it has a huge negative impact on the ecosystem functioning and on the services that they provide. It is even more felt by poor countries that have a high reliance on natural resources and that have a low capability to utilize such resources. And it is extremely important that we understand all dimensions of this biodiversity and its impact on environment, society, and the economy of these countries. For this reason, I'd like to introduce to you a multidisciplinary network called Bridge Columbia that was developed under the shared vision of preserving biodiversity in Colombia, of course. And it is a network that includes a diversity of expertise, and at its heart really has the words that the name spell out, and those words are spelled both in English and in Spanish: biodiversity, responsibility, innovation, development, growth, and education. Before I go into describing you a little bit more about this network, I wanted to show you a little video that tells you a little bit more about our vision.
Hemos visto en los últimos meses en el desarrollo de este proyecto pues, el crecimiento de una red increíble de actores, tanto colombianos como del Reino Unido, quienes se han unido, cada uno con su capacidad, cada uno con su experticia.
The Bridge network is composed by a number of organizations, over 50 to date. It started off with organization membership from Colombia and UK mainly, and it expanded to include additional countries recently, Australia and the US and Canada. And it's a variety of expertise. We bring together expertise from agriculture, from conservation, from ecology, from the environmental economics, the social sciences, the a number of diverse expertise really to consider the issue of biodiversity from all dimensions. What the network aims at doing is to, of course, continue to promote collaboration, partnership, stimulate this partnership and exchange of knowledge, and also to facilitate the development of fully integrated research program in order to promote research excellence, but also resilience in the research capability. Lastly, we really hope that through the efforts of this network, we can continue to establish a framework for the use of biodiversity in a sustainable way that will promote not only the social welfare of Colombia, but also its economic development. We are more than the sum of all parts. We are multidisciplinary, we are multisectoral, and we absolutely aim to translate into actions the Sustainable Development Goals and promote a long-term impact to the economic growth of Colombia. The partnership in itself is extremely inclusive, and I think this is one of the very important aspects of the success of this partnership. It includes all the stakeholders and it seeks guidance from the stakeholders. It builds equitable relationship, co-create goals, and communicates in all sorts of ways and by every mean, and in order to build a relationship that are absolutely trusted and respected by all. We meet annually in Colombia to bring together at the table in panels or forums all of the expertise across the sector to talk about environmental issues, to talk about biodiversity, to talk about the challenges of Colombia to become a biodiversity-based economy. In 2019, we partnered with the Natural History Museum in London and brought the Bridge-sponsored activities to the UK with 2 events, a European Research Night and a Doing Science with Colombia Day. Many initiatives have been facilitated by our network, a network that has been really successful in generating initiative and in attracting funding. And I don't have the time to talk to you about all of these initiatives today. And in fact, I wanted to concentrate some of my time in this lecture to tell you about a funded project, the Grow Colombia GCRF project. But it's worth mentioning that a number of networks have also been facilitated by Bridge, the C3 Biodiversidad Consortium of Cyber Infrastructure in Colombia in collaboration with the Ministry of Science, the Colombia Science Media Network, including many international journalists, which were engaged to talk about the science. This was a plea that our investigators in Colombia asked us, can you train our journalists to talk about the good science that we do, not just the challenges that Colombia faces. A microbial ecology group, very specific, that has been emerging and has been extremely active, involving many early career researchers, and a tremendously powerful public engagement network working at the interface with biodiversity, which sees in a partnership many of the strong public-facing institutions. And we will talk about some of the initiatives of this network later in the context of the Grow Colombia project. But also, we were able to facilitate many projects that have subsequently obtained funding. The Grow Colombia, the EBP Colombia in collaboration with the Ministry of Science, the GCRF cluster for meeting policy challenges of biodiverse-based economy, and the Peace with Nature program of reintegration of our displaced communities, such as the ex-combatants. And so this is, it's been really, really positive. And I would like to just focus your attention for a minute on the Colombia Cyber Infrastructure Consortium for Biodiversity, who brings together over 10 institutions from Colombia with expertise from the UK, the Erlam Institute, but also additional expertise from the US to ensure the efficient and accurate analysis of the abundant biodiversity data that are there and will be generated, and that ensures that an advanced community of skilled people will be able to manage this data in a sustainable, secure, collaborative, and interoperable way. And the reason for mentioning this is because this is a network facilitated by Bridge that has actually successfully obtained subsequently funding by the Royal Academy of Engineering to continue its activity with use cases and proof of principle studies. But before I move on to talk to you a little bit about our program, I want to give you a little bit of a context for you to understand how our program has been so successful. in its impact and in the activity that has delivered. And the first thing to mention is that at the time we started to work on biodiversity in Colombia, it was an important and historic time for the country as they entered a peace agreement in 2016 under the Santos administration, and a long process of reconciliation, which is still ongoing. But as part of this reconciliations effort, many of the territories which were under the armed forces control were released, and the government developed a national strategy around biodiversity, and with a program called Colombia Bio, started many expeditions into this territory to collect the missing information on biodiversity. And Newton Caldas Fund was also developed, and this partnership between UK and Colombia, which saw many investments going to the utilization and facilitation of the analysis of this biodiversity. This is the time we received our first GCRF money to set up a partnership, and this partnership, it was our Bridge Colombia network, or what became then this powerful network. And at the same time, through the network, we were able to put together and take advantage of another GCRF opportunity, which led to the funding of the Grow Colombia project. But right at the same time, while these initiatives were taking off, we were also able to really connect with the national strategy on biodiversity. We were able to influence the green growth strategy left by the previous administrations, and we were able to align with the new administration's priorities by President Duque. And I was very, very fortunate to be elected by the UK as a representative on this commission of experts to advise the next 10-year science, innovation, and technology agenda for Colombia. And this really describes a little bit the ground, the fertile ground that we had on which we could build upon, because our approach was fundamentally a bottom-up approach, but we were then able to link all the work that we were doing on the ground with the national priorities through our work on policy and advisory work. And so there were a number of conditions really that made this possible for us. The immense biodiversity, the hunger from the country to want to fill that gap in knowledge on their national biodiversity, the peace agreement, and also the national push with the expedition and the Colombia Bio program, and we were able to really establish an international trust that is ever so important today for every activity that we do. Colombia is indeed mega diverse, but many informations are missing, and thanks to the 21 expeditions that the government had promoted and facilitated, Colombia was able to gain much more information, to implement new registers, and to really begin to build capacity to understand and characterize and utilize sustainably this immense biodiversity. And of course, it's only natural that I would spearhead an Earth Biogenome project in Colombia, given this amazing biodiversity, but also given the political context that I just described to you. And I am very pleased to tell you that it was just launched recently and in alignment with the Ministry of Science. This effort was possible thanks to also the partnership with Silvia Restrepo at the University of Los Andes, and with, of course, all of our partners, but most importantly with the Ministry of Science, who will be launching in 2021 a program called Colombia Genomica, completely aligned to the EBP, with a number of funding calls available for researchers to bid for projects in this Earth Biogenome project space. And I think that this is just really a remarkable achievement and testament to the commitment of all of our Colombian partners. So now I'd like to describe to you the Grow Colombia project, which is the GCRF funded project, which is multidisciplinary in nature and aligns with the, of course, the Colombia national strategy, and has a shared vision on protecting biodiversity to achieve sustainability and peace. We have many partners, and too many to list in one slide, but this is just a snapshot of some of our major partners and collaborators, and also worth noting an acknowledgement to our funders, and our funder list continues to grow, and we are extremely pleased about this after recognizing the values of our activities. These are the faces, and they are not even all of them, but the faces of some very important people, postdocs, research assistants, principal investigators, research managers in all sorts of scientific disciplines that make the research programs come true every day across the UK, Colombia, and also some in the US and in Australia. We have a website that is very informative and tells you everything we're doing about the project, www.growcolombia.org. This is a snapshot from the website and shows you the map of Colombia. And you can see on this map all of the activities that we are involved in and that we have facilitated and developed. And now I would like to show you a brief video that we think really embodies the vision for our project.
Biodiversity is our conscience, our heart, and our future. It needs all of us to work together at the same time, building equitable partnerships, sharing openly, generating knowledge through innovative science, impacting decision-making, including all the voices, achieving economic prosperity and sustainability through peace and social welfare.
One species epitomizes our vision. It is powerful but vulnerable. In Andean indigenous cultures, it is believed to be a sacred animal, an older brother, a wizard who bridges heaven and earth, people and nature, and guides us into achieving nature's full potential in a transformative way. He has many names: Ucumari,
Ucumari,
Oso Andino,
Andean bear,
Oso Frontino,
oso de anteojos,
Spectacled bear,
Paddington bear.
He is one of a kind, the only bear in South America. Unique as the ecosystems he lives in, Andean forests and paramos across the 3 mountain ranges in Colombia. He is the gentle guardian of these extraordinary places, dispersing seeds, restoring habitats, nourishing the ecosystems that support people too. Despite his important role, his existence is under threat. Climate change, habitat loss, and conflict with humans are decimating the Andean bear populations.
This is why we are using innovative genetic techniques to see how the bird populations are related to each other and make the best possible decisions to ensure their future and our future. If you share this vision of a society based on biodiversity, join us to make Colombia an example for the rest of the world.
There's never been a better time to grow Colombia.
Our Grow Colombia project is a remarkable project, is a remarkable collaboration, and is centered on biodiversity in Colombia, centered as a mean to contribute to the country's heritage and to preserve its unique systems, but also importantly in this important context of reconciliation, also to improve human welfare, social equality, and economic development for the country. We have aligned the project with the Sustainable Development Goal. We have 3 programs that are extremely interconnected. one on natural diversity, which aims to fill the information gap on the national knowledge of biodiversity, at the same time understanding how to prevent the loss of biodiversity moving forward. We have an agricultural diversity program, which looks at the drivers of habitat loss, and in particular also looks at ways to accelerate breeding on relevant crops, but also maintaining sustainable farming practices. We have a socio-economic program which builds on the natural and agricultural diversity programs and research evidence that comes from these programs, and tries to strengthen policies and ecosystem services. While we do all of this, we also have an important commitment to build capacity by growing research skills at all career levels, stimulating partnerships, and bringing through this capacity building technological innovation in approach and methodology. In the Natural Diversity Program, we aim to address the information gap, and we would like to really have as a long-term impact an enhancement of such national knowledge. We specifically concentrate on the quality and characterization of existing biological collections in Colombia, but also of the new collections that are being developed right now and will be developed in the future. And we hope to develop and implement action plans for the management of key species. We do this while we build capacity in genomic methods for the analysis of these collections, and also past collections in museums, and also use some sequencing technology to build capacity in understanding and characterize the evolutionary and populations genomics of important species, and also understanding how to carry out in-field monitoring of biodiversity. And we won't leave out the important piece of informatic analysis, of managing this data, and of storing this data. There are many projects in the Natural Biodiversity Program, too many to really talk to you about today, but I would like to highlight a couple. First of all, I'd like to highlight the Andean bear project. As you have seen from the video, this is known to you as Paddington bear. This project is led by an amazing collaboration between the Ian Barnes at the National History Museum and his team, Wilfred Harty at the Earlham Institute, myself at the University of East Anglia, the Humboldt Institute, the University of Los Andes, Parque Nacionales in Colombia, and many more. This species is extremely important, as you've seen, to Colombia. It's endemic to the tropical Andes, is listed as vulnerable, and is being threatened by fragmentations, habitat degradation, and human conflict. And we hope to understand the current status of these Andean bear populations in Colombia, and to also understand the past genetic diversity. We have, in fact, carried out an effort of securing samples of diverse specimens from museums between 1914 and 2008. We hope to be able to understand the state of the populations, but also to understand the relationship between the genetic distance and the geographical distances. And this is really a project that is not just based on this research activity, but a project that involves also a lot of social scientists and our environmental economists, which also look at the impact of what we are finding out from our research activities on the conservation of the species, and looks at the potential reasons for the vulnerability of these species, including the human conflict reasons. And here I want to show you something really quickly. It has no sound, but it's a beautiful picture of an Andean bear. And the many times we've been to Colombia, we have never been able to see a bear. And this is essentially the camera traps we have installed across the national parks to collect our samples. It's taken a long time for us to do that. And these are the videos that come straight to our telephone. And the only way we get to see a bear in action. Another project that is worth highlighting is the Cacao project. Now, Cacao, it's important to Colombia. It is not majorly exported from Colombia, but nevertheless, it's important for the sustainable livelihood of many communities. And it's also a crop that has become quite political since the peace agreement, as it was proposed as a replacement for cocaine and a replacement crop, and was labeled as a cacao for peace. So we have decided to take advantage of the government expedition that was done in unexplored territories to sample the diversity of the cacao species, and we want to now analyze this diversity and understand a little bit more about the natural environment that these species live in. This is an effort that is led by the University of East Anglia, by the University of Los Andes in Colombia, Marta Vives, Silvia Restrepo and their teams, and of course in close partnership with many people in the UK and in Colombia as well. The Agricultural Biodiversity Programme aims at minimizing habitat loss through the improvement of sustainable practices. And again, in this program, we have many projects, and we build genetic resources and toolkits for accelerating breeding of relevant crops, evaluation of mixed pasture system to continue to minimize biodiversity loss, and also look at the soil and crop health monitoring. And at the same time, we build again that capacity in methods and applications. This is many of the projects in these programs, which are displayed here, are led by SEAT. In particularly, I want to mention Jacobo Arango, who has been instrumental in leading many of these projects. Also, I'd like to mention Jose de Vega, our GCRF fellow, located at the Erlam Institute, very active in developing the tool kits for accelerating breeding, and also many of our partners, like private partners like Senicania for the sugarcane research center, with whom we are trying to understand the origins of modern sugarcane, and with that knowledge inform future breeding. And then of course Colin Murrell and its team at the University of East Anglia, in partnership with many of our Colombia partners, public and private university, especially around the Valle del Cauca regions, and of course also AgroSavia, which is the research institute in Colombia reporting to the Ministry of Agriculture. Our number 3 program is the Socio-Economic Biodiversity Program, and with this program we really want to look at strengthening policies and raising awareness around ecosystem services and around the management of biodiversity for a sustainable bioeconomy. We have an aim to really tackle the valuation of this biodiversity for a country like Colombia, and also we have a number embedded in the program of social engagement strategies for a community, which are all intended to promote the sustainable development activities in Colombia. And I would like to just focus a little bit on the economic valuation program, and just really mention here that it is a truly environmental, ecological, and economic approach that we are taking. This program is led by Professor Kerry Turner at the University of East Anglia and his team in collaboration with our Colombia partners. And it is looking at the diversity in all the dimensions, biological, economic, and social. And it's really important for sustainability. But most importantly, it's actually looking at the inevitable trade-offs and synergy that exist between biological conservation and land use and food production. The three main areas that the program focuses on are sustainable cacao production, involving producers and consumers, trying to determine the importance of social and environmental responsibility for the production of cacao, and also involving the perspective of industry and of a responsible supply chain. We look at sustainable cattle ranches, extensive versus intense cattle ranches. Decision makers really are involved to try and appreciate the impacts of these cattle ranches, and also farmers are involved from a point of view of demonstrating the environmental benefits that are associated with shifting to some more beneficial and sustainable regimes. We look at ecotourism as a way to promote local economies because, for example, key species like the Andean bear or the pink dolphin or other plant species can be very valuable to build the local business models for ecotourism. And we work very closely with many of the communities thanks to our Colombia partners who have nurtured a relationship with this local community for many, many years. And as an example, I would like to show you this first report that we published with the Socio-Economic team led by Professor Kerry Turner, a report that we have used with the UK government and also the Colombian government to advocate for not a sharp macro policy switch, but an evolutionary transition towards a sustainable low carbon bioeconomy, which is facilitated by the National Green Growth Strategy in Colombia. There will be two more reports as well that will be published by Christmas. Capacity building. As I said to you, we have many research initiatives under the research programs all around biodiversity. But what's really important to us, and it's an important component of this program, is building capacity. And we have done so by delivering 35 capacity building events, such as workshop, training events, symposia. We've engaged more than 1,100 people with equal gender representation. And we have engaged a variety of audiences from academic to journalists to businesses to farmers and to displaced communities such as the ex-combatant. And one of the things I would like to mention in this slide is the fact that our capacity building is building really a legacy and is having quite a bit of success and impact in Colombia, and for this reason has secured additional funding to the original Grow Colombia funding by diverse organizations which are continuing to deliver our training, and some of them are listed on these slides. And with regard to displaced communities, I would like to focus your attention now to an effort which has had an unprecedented result and has been even endorsed by the United Nations. It's something we feel very, very proud of, and it's our Peace with Nature program, which is helping the former Colombian guerrillas fighters to become citizen scientists. This work is an immense amount of work from 13 different institutions with support from the British Embassy in Colombia, and the absolutely necessary leadership of Jaime Gongora from the University of Sydney, who has made this possible. It took 3 years to prepare, but we were able to include in our training representation from all the units of displacement. The workshop has had so much success, and it has resonated immensely that we have now obtained further funding to continue and turn the workshops into more regional workshops across Colombia. But we have empowered these ex-combatants who are themselves very knowledgeable on biodiversity and on the territory they used to control. Empower them with knowledge about how to make inventories, how to characterize biodiversity, how to, and we have equipped them with GPS units and camera traps that they are able to keep and continue to use. And really, we've been reflecting on their contribution to protect biodiversity and to continue to establish the reconciliation and peace in Colombia, and to also reflect on business models that use this biodiversity for some local enterprises that they might be able to run. Again, in our socioeconomic program, we have a public engagement component. This public engagement component is very important to us because it is important to understand the social, the economic, and the cultural importance of biodiversity. And we do so by engaging an audience at all education levels. And this is led by our public engagement network, which includes partners like the Natural History Museum in London and botanic gardens in Colombia, but is led by our Eden projects here in the UK. And it's been astonishing to see what the network, with the leadership of the Eden project, has been able to achieve. We have participated in many, many activities. Our partners have participated in many activities. It is a network and a web of activity across different countries. And we are extremely pleased. But possibly one activity I would like to mention in this short amount of time is the Learning Outside of the Classroom Day, which is a day in Colombia set aside for children to go outside of the classroom and learn something. And we have provided teachers with materials that we have developed on our research projects around biodiversity. And we have now reached 4,100 children from 30 underprivileged public schools in Colombia. These materials will stay with them forever and will be continued to be used by teachers and schools. And the program has been so successful that we are now evaluating to do this in the UK. And again, thanks to our public engagement partners, we have been able to reach with activities by integrating some of our core mission of the Grow Colombia project and some of the activity with a bigger activity that these partners were organizing, like the Botanic Gardens activity or the Eden Project activities, we've been able to reach more than 306,000 people so far. And again, this is just one slide to tell you that our job since the pandemic has been even harder, as we've been working really, really hard to move to a virtual world of training and engagement. And these are some of the examples of activity we've been able to give during this time, but also it's important to note that the success of this virtual engagement was certainly relying on the foundation of relationship and trust we have built pre-pandemic. And finally, I hope I was able to really give you a flavor for what a strong, collaborative and equitable partnership can achieve in the face of global challenges. We have reached a lot of impact in a short amount of time. Privileged to have been able to advise the national strategy in Colombia with the previous administration and the present administration. Privileged to being able to interact in the UK by providing evidence to the relevant parties, and to also to many human rights committees and deforestation committee. Really privileged to, with our socio-economic report, for example, having been able to inform a base and the UK International Climate Fund on developing their portfolio of investment, which has been translated in this Sustainable Growth Memorandum of Understanding between UK and Colombia. We continue our work of interacting with the Ministry of Environment, with the CITES Authority, with the Ministry of Agriculture, in a hope that our results, for example, the one from our Andean bear biodiversity project, can inform policy for the management of key species and their conservation. And also we continue to interact with the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. And I have absolutely no doubt that with the continued commitment of all of our partners, we will have a substantive and lasting positive impact in Colombia. But one thing I will add is that the scientific-based evidence and political will have to be coherent. Oh, nothing can really be achieved on the on the policy level. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, that was a fantastic talk, Federica. Amazing how you've got yourself so immersed in the Colombian ecosystem and society and community for these action events and promoting genomics. So we've got a slate of various questions. We can go right into those. First one looks like they want to know, could you provide some examples on how genomics research has helped or is expected to help in creating biodiversity-based value chains in Colombia?
So at the moment, the approach that we are taking is obviously in the regions, there's a lot of complexity to Colombia as there is a geographical and cultural diversity, and this is reflected in the regional outlook of Colombia itself. And bioeconomy really, in order to be promoted at its best and in order to really promote the economic growth of the country, needs to happen in the regions. And when we look at the regions, which we are just starting, the Grow Colombia project started, we now have a grant thanks to the bridge network of the GCRF cluster, which will continue to actually look in much more details exactly the question that you are asking me now, is that we needed to set up a network within the regions between academic partnership and industry partnership. And we needed to understand the diversity that exists in the capacity and infrastructure that exists in the regions. Each of the regions are different. Valle del Cauca, for example, you'll have a lot of agricultural diversity. The coffee regions will provide also agricultural diversity, but from a different aspect. We looked at each of these different, we looked at the Orinoco regions and Antioquia. And we met with the Chamber of Commerce. We put together the academic and the industry partners, and we did a base assessment. And the way we use in genomics is, of course, a lot of these people are already doing that in a very inefficient way. And what we're hoping to do is to bring some technological advice and innovation and also partnerships to speed up the process of bioprospecting, for instance, in these regions. In some cases, this is very complex. Genomics is not going to solve all the problem, but genomics is the first step. We need that. We need to generate the data. Then we are organizing the capacity to actually utilize this data, and this brings implication on the value chain, and it brings regulatory implications as well. And we are trying to sort this out. The Grow Colombia project is going to sponsor in the new year a workshop, which actually is we have contracted one of the best IP agencies in the UK to run this workshop on access for genetic resources and benefits. And because at the moment, even if they are capable of generating the genomic data and capable of utilizing them, we have a lot of bottlenecks at several steps in the production chains, which are regulatory bottlenecks, preventing Colombia from being really competitive due to the long times that it requires to get approvals. And a lot of these approvals actually are still reliant on US FDA systems, which for Colombia are extremely expensive, and they could last a minimum to of 2 years to get an approval to more, which makes them, when they discover something new or they have a new products for market, it just makes it very difficult to get out there. So so we are looking, so that my answer is that yes, we are building capacity and actually doing some pilots, more practically and tactically pilots to generate this data. But we are also looking through the socio-economic program at all the pieces that needs to be in places in order to take this further. And obviously, it's not easy, but we have built enough trust and connections across the country where it's making this possible. But then also there is a very strong will from Colombia itself to want to promote this biodiversity-based bioeconomy at the moment. So there is a lot of help from the government to actually collaborate.
What I've heard from some of these developing country talks the past couple of days is the some interest or the need for local, nodes to kind of spark these issues, as well as the broader regulatory and government. And it seems like you've already done that. You made these connections and they're there, and you want to connect them at some point. So that's, fantastic.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that excites me is that, as well as the broader perspective, I think that at the end of the day, there are a lot of scientists working in this program, and we are practical, and we like the pilots, and we like to start and getting something done and going through the process, and want to show the process, and then show with that process we want to scale it up and be, be an example that the country can adopt.
Yes, and then broader. I think we have time. I have time for just one more question, and then I got to go chair another session. But a worried Brazilian asked, the destruction of the Brazilian Amazon threatens the project. Does it threaten the project in any way? Is there any interaction with Brazilian groups?
We do have an interaction. Is indirect. No, our interaction is not direct. It's indirect through the Sinchi Institute, which is obviously the institute located in the Amazon, in Leticia, in Colombia. At the moment, we are working with cattle ranching, deforestation, and trying to avoided carbon emissions projects to demonstrate the benefits of this approach in collaboration with the Sinchi Institute, but in particular location in Colombia. And so far, that has not threatened that project.
Okay, well, great. There are a few more questions, but I think you can take it offline, or they can reach out to you. I think this is an excellent overview of an economy and the juxtaposition, with what genomics can do, and connect people with the biology of the region. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.